I always like starting with Stephen Hawking's famous line, "Can you all hear me?" And I'm assuming you all can, so I'm going to proceed. I also wanted to give you a taste of something called Beamer. This is another LaTeX document class that you can use to make your presentation. So I just wanted you to see how it is today. Meanwhile, Sagar, if you're here, can we start recording? Before I begin, I think it's best if we start recording. I'll keep this page up.
It started, Vikrant.
Started? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Right. So what we'll be doing today is citations and references and bibliography. If you have attended previous talks of Nakshatra, we had all of us from the core team had recently given a talk on the research ecosystem. So I will be, I mean, this would sort of be a derivative of that, and there's a typo in derivative, sorry. It will be a derivative, as in I've already discussed as to what research is back there. What I'll be focusing on here is what exactly are citations and references in brief, and then we'll go about learning how to uh, cite our stuff and use our references in our LaTeX document. Right. So this will be the rough way. We'll look at the definition of research first, just to give you an idea of what we're doing in this project. And sources of research is something that we've discussed in the previous class, right? We talked about archive, we talked about how to go about, finding research papers from Wikipedia, reading Wikipedia articles, and which is a valid source of research, which is not, and so on and so forth. I'll briefly touch upon that again, and then we'll directly get into what a citation is, what a reference is. I'll again only be giving you a brief of it, and I urge all of you to go back and read more about it. Right, and then we'll go about learning how to start your bib file, and how do you start off bibliography in LaTeX. Right, so let's get into the definition first. According to Wikipedia, research is a creative and systematic work undertaken to increase the stock of knowledge. So basically, all of you right now are somewhat doing that. Right, you're learning about stuff that interests you, and your stock of knowledge is being increased, and that exactly is what research is. Right, but then you sort of need to have evidences for it, right? So you see here on this particular slide that I haven't told that I actually got it from Wikipedia. It's just verbally that I'm telling you that I took this from Wikipedia, but you don't have any evidence for that. You don't have any reference for that, right? So this presentation, this talk is going to be focusing more on that. And without further ado, we can get into sources of research. We've already discussed in the previous class what valid sources of research are, which includes your research papers, your journals, and your published papers, and so on. Preprints are acceptable only up to a certain extent, but for your higher level research, you would rather choose or decide to choose uh, published articles that are in journals and peer-reviewed journals, and so on and so forth, right? What we'll be moving on to right now is what exactly is a citation and what exactly is a reference. I will not take much time on this. Right, so the first thing is citation. Now, citation tells you about where the information comes from, and it's a direct source of information, right? It's not information itself, but it's a direct source of information. It tells you where to go. So when you're citing something, that particular citation tells you where do you want to go to read about that particular thing, right? Now, I have an example statement here, which I also had used in the previous talk that I'd given. Beavers have been shown to be discriminate eaters of hardwood, right? Now, this is a statement that I'm making, and as someone else who's reading this particular statement needs to know where the information came from, right? Hence the citation number one, right? The square bracket number one is called the citation, and it tells me about where the information is coming from. Now, it doesn't make sense when I just put number one, right? I mean, what is number one? It doesn't really make sense. So that's where reference comes in, right? So this citation one, the first citation, actually refers to some article or some book or some paper or whatever it is. It refers to that, right? So uh, that brings us to our reference, which is the actual source of your information, right? And this is something that you can read. If you just read one, it's not going to make sense to you. This one is sort of like a map that leads you to a particular reference which you can read, right? That is what you will be referring to, right? That's what it is. So reference is the actual source which the readers can read it by themselves, right? That's what you can read and stuff. And this was just like a very rough, very vague overview of what citations and references are. And I strongly urge all of you to go back and read about citations and references in more detail and see what difference there is and see how citations and references are used in every document, and under what circumstances do you call them citations and references and so on. But this is a very brief overview of what they are. Um, the next is how to use citations and references in your LaTeX package, right? In your LaTeX document. Now there are several ways to do this, right? There are several packages that you can use. What I will be using is something called the natbib package. Okay, that's the name of the package, natbib. You will also find others like the bib latex, bibtech, and so on. But I prefer using natbib because I've been using this for quite some time now. Although I should warn you right now that I'm not an expert at bibliography, right? So I am whatever I'm going to tell you from now on is sort of my experience with it so far, right? The way that I have been using it, and so I will try to the best of my abilities to do justice to the natbib package itself. Right? So the bib in it stands for bibliography, right? And I'm not sure what the nat stands for, but the natbib package is what I will be telling you how to use. And again, you're free to explore the other bib latex and bibtech packages and their syntaxes and so on. But the rough idea of everything remains the same, right? The way you cite stuff and everything else sort of is roughly the same. And we'll get into this, right? So it's quite obvious how you would use your package. You just say use package natbib in the preamble, right? So your preamble is the top of the document that you start. So you have a document class, which in our case is going to be an article, and then any other packages that you require, like geometry or AMS math, AMS sim, and so on and so forth. One of them is going to be natbib. So we're going to have a use package natbib. That's it, right? And then you can go ahead and begin and end your document. There's really no difference with that, right? So just like that, you can use your natbib package. As soon as you're done with that, you sort of need to tell what reference are you using. I mean, where are your references stored, right? Like if I'm using an article, if I want to cite an article, where is it stored, right? So for that, at the end of I prefer doing at the end of this document, I say backslash bibliography ref, this particular line here, right? I hope you see the highlight as well, right? It's that particular package that this, so this ref is the name of the file where my what do you say, the articles, the books, the information about the books and all is stored, right? And we'll get to that soon, like how do you prepare, how do you build up, or how do you create your ref files there. Now another line that you see here is bibliography style. Now that just tells you how your bibliography should be displayed in your paper. There are different styles which sort of deals with how the author name is shown. Like, do you want the full name Albert Einstein, or do you want just the surname Einstein, or do you want like the initials and the surname like A. Einstein and so on. And there are differences like that. Bibliography style plain just prints everything, right? It's going to be a very plain thing. So if you have a very big name like Ludwig Boltzmann and his methods on statistical physics from Journal of so on so forth, so on so forth, it's going to print the entire thing as it is, right? It's a very plain thing, and hence the word plain. Again, I leave it to you as an exercise to explore the other styles of bibliography that are available. It varies from package to package, as far as I know. So for now, I think you can just go ahead and look at different bibliography styles for natbib for now, right? That's the package that we're using right now. So you can explore the different styles that are available online. Right? And again, like I said, this bibliography ref tells me where is my bibliography coming from. And ref here, the whatever is inside the curly brackets is the name of your file. Okay, it's called a bib file, which will be our next topic. Right, we'll look at how to create the bib file. Right, now this is the most important part of your reference, because this particular bib file holds all the information about um, your books, your articles, your websites, or whatever it is that you want to refer to. Right, this bib file is where you will hold all your information. And this bib file is what you'll be using in your LaTeX file through the code bibliography ref, right? So that's what you'll be doing. Let me switch back to presentation mode, right? So now we'll have a look at what the bib file is and how do you go about that. right? So like I said, you need a place to store all your references, and it's just a text file, right? Your bib file is basically just a text file with an extension .bib. And to create a bib file is quite simple. You just open any text editor. If you're using Windows, then you can just open Notepad, right? Or if you're using Linux, then there's a text editor directly available by the name text editor. It's nothing. It's just your basic any editor that you have, and you type in something. Like if you're using a book, then you type in a few things. We'll come to that in a few moments, right? And then you save it with a .bib extension. That's it, right? That's about it. There's nothing else to it. So you just start a new editor, you start a new text file, you type in whatever is required. If it is a book, then you type in all the details of the book, the title, the author, the publisher, the publication year, the ISBN number, anything that you would require. And then you save it with a .bib extension, and there you have your bib file, right? So in my case, I will be saving the file as ref.bib. I will after some time, I'll show you how the ref.bib file looks like. Right? But before that, let's get into the different types that you might require immediately. There are, of course, other things as well, apart from books, articles, and miscellaneous. But I will be sticking to books, articles, and miscellaneous stuff to give you an idea of different types of references that you can have. Right? So you would be referring to websites and so on, and each of those will have different requirements. Like for a book, you would have a title, author, the year of publication, and so on. If you're referring to an article that is published in some journal, then you would have the journal, the edition, the page numbers, and so on, right? There are different fields that are required for different kind of references, and again, I'll just show you a few of them here, and I will leave it as an exercise to you to figure out the rest of them. Okay? So the first thing is books. Right now, if you want to refer a book, this is what you would do. Right, the first line at book says that this particular reference is going to be a book. Okay? And then you open a curly bracket, and the very first line here. Sorry, I should probably just right. The very first line here, Griffiths ED. That's the word, or that's the phrase that you'll be using inside your LaTeX document to refer to this book, to cite this book. Right now, what is this book? This book is Introduction to Electrodynamics by the author David J. Griffiths, published in 1999 by Pearson Publications. Right. So these are called the fields: the title, the author, the year, the publisher. Those are called the fields of this particular reference. And for a book, in my case, I find this much to be enough, right? Some people also put the ISBN numbers, the edition, and so on and so forth. I'll leave that up to you to explore and figure out what else you want in your reference. But this is a very simple sort of a thing, right? Article I will show it to you in detail, but for now this is enough for me, right? So like I said, at book tells you about the kind of reference you have. For a book, it's going to be book. For an article, it'll be an at article. We'll see that next, right? And then the very first phrase that you have is going to be the phrase that you will use to cite inside your document. I'll again show you an example in a few moments, right? And then it's the information about the book, the title of the book, the author, the year, and the publisher. One thing that you want to keep in your mind is everything has to be separated by a comma. Right? All of them have to be separated by a comma. You can put them in different lines. I've just put them in different lines just so that it's a little clear to understand, but it doesn't really make a difference. But the commas are quite important, right? So that's briefly about books. And again, I leave it to you as an exercise to learn about the other fields like the ISBN number, the edition, or some section that you're using in your book, so on and so forth. I'll leave that up to you, and how it varies with different bibliography styles. Right? You can also explore that. The next is articles. This is probably what you'll be using quite a lot. So I've given a little bit in detail. So again, like I said, this kind of a reference is going to be an article. So you have an at article at the very beginning, and then you start your curly brackets. And like I said, again, the first phrase is going to be what you'll be using to cite this particular article inside your LaTeX document. Right, the author is Christian Campos Fernandez. I picked this from another article that I was using before. So one advantage for articles and stuff, the stuff that is published in journals, is whenever you visit their web page or something, like if you were to go to Archive or Springer or whatever it is, somewhere in on their web page, you would have an option to export citation. Right? You might have seen this or might not have seen this, but the next time you read a research paper, look for this option called export citation, and then in that you would find an option called BibLatex, right? Export is BibLatex or something like that. If you do that, all of this comes in before, sort of pre-filled. So all you have to do is just copy paste that into your bib file. You get that by default, and all you have to do is just copy paste this into your bib file. That's quite simple when you're dealing with research papers and so on. Now let's look at the fields. Like I said, it's an article, right? And I'm going to cite it using the phrase Fernandez. The author of this particular paper is Christian Campos Fernandez. The journal is Opt Mater Express, whatever that is, right? Optional Material Express, or whatever it is, right? Edition number 1, right? It's the first book, first volume, something like that. From pages 85 to 100, OSA is the publisher of this particular journal, right? We're talking about a journal here, so OSA is the publisher. The title, they've used an href here, right? The actual title of the paper is Visible Light Reflection Spectra from Cuticle Layered Materials, right? But since they've used an href and you're already familiar with the hyperref package, whenever this comes up in our bibliography in our final LaTeX document, it's going to be hyperlinked, right? So what you will see is only this title, but if you were to click on it, it would lead you to this website, osapublishing.org, blah, blah, blah. It leads you to this particular article. Right now, you are also, of course, allowed to kick out the href and have just the title like we had for book. And vice versa. Here, instead of just the title of the book, if you have a link to the book on your drive or something for open access, then you can use an href here as well. Right? So that works both ways. It really depends on you. Again, this is the volume, like we mentioned up here. Which month was it published in, which year was it published in, and the DOI of the thing. Right? DOI is something like digital, I don't know, some indicator or something like that. It tells you about the unique ID of the particular article and so on. Right, so this is a very brief about articles, and again, I urge you to explore the other fields that possibly could be added and how your referencing changes with different bibliography styles and so on. Right. The next is a miscellaneous. Now there are quite several instances where you just have to write an article for some website or for your college or something like that, and in that you don't need. That's not really a research paper, right? You just read a website and then you sort of make a summary of it or something like that. Or the other day we were looking at phys.org and stuff like that. So if you were to sort of summarize that, then you're in that case, since it's not an actual article or a project or a research project or a reading project or anything of that sort, you can just quote the website itself if it's not a very serious thing. And in those cases, your miscellaneous comes in handy because these are not any specified kind of sources, right? It's not an article, it's not a book, it's not a preprint, it's not a thesis or whatever it is, right? It's a very miscellaneous thing that is freely available. And that's why it says at MISC at the very starting, right? And we open our curly brackets, and the very first phrase, you see there is no space. Spaces aren't usually allowed. You can put an underscore or a dash, but avoid using space bars, right? You avoid, so Crystal Space Beetle would sort of give you errors sometimes. So to avoid that, you can use a dash or an underscore or whatever it is, right? So this would be my phrase that I would use to cite. And then again, like usual, we have the authors of that particular article, or in this case, the website. Even on websites, you have people who write stuff, right? So the title of that particular website article is going to be "How did insects get their colors?" and so on and so forth. How was it published? Where was it published? You can just put the entire thing, right? Available at, again, I used an href here, so it leads to the link. This is the link. And I'm just going to say it is available at the conversation, and it's an article from April 16th. When I cite this in my document in the bibliography section, it's just going to show available at the conversation, but this conversation is going to be hyperlinked. So when I click on conversation, it's going to lead me to this particular link. That's how href works. So that's a standard thing. And again, if you don't want to do that, then you can just get rid of this href package and be done with it. So this was a very brief introduction to the different kinds of references that you can have. And currently for your ongoing projects, I felt that this much would be enough to get you started with. It's the absolute basics, right? You can start off making your bib files and putting all of these, and keep a track of stuff, so that you don't lose information about where you took what from. It's very important in the scientific community to make sure that you give proper credit to whoever work that you're using, whoever's, I don't know the proper term for that, right? Whichever work you're using, it is always mandatory to give their credit to them, right? So even if I'm referring to a particular article from this website called The Conversation, from an article on April 16, 2020, it is important for me to make sure that they get their proper credits, right? Because my work wouldn't exist if this article wasn't there. Right? No matter what my work is, it wouldn't have existed if this article wasn't there for me to refer back to, right? Even though it's not a proper scientific document, it still helped me, right? And so I would rather put it under the miscellaneous category rather than not put it at all, right? So it's very important that even if it's the at most vague website that you refer to, unless it's not a scientific article, it's important that you give them their credit, right? So that's like a very brief about all of this. We'll move on. Now we'll look at how to actually cite it in your document, and then we'll look at a quick example on how does it look like in your code and so on. Right. So few things that you want to take care of before we start off is make sure that your bib file is ready. Right. So like I said, open a text file, put your books, your articles, your miscellaneous stuff, your theses, whatever it is. Make sure you follow their formats, their syntaxes, and put all the required information. Right. Now, if you're using TechMaker, if you're using it offline like I do, make sure that your bib file is in the same location, in the same folder as your tech file, right? And if you're using Overleaf, then make sure that you upload your ref.bib file into your project, right? It's the same process again. You just click on upload and then you just upload your file there. Okay. Otherwise, if you are not so okay with uploading, then you can also start a new file there on Overleaf, just like how you would regularly start a new file, and then name it as ref.pip. Right, the default thing there would be some name.tech. Just get rid of that and name it as ref.bib. The .bib extension is absolutely important, right? Otherwise, LaTeX is not going to understand where to get this bibliography from. If you do not have a bib file inside your folder or on Overleaf already there, it's not going to work. Right? So it's absolutely important that you make sure that the extension of your file is ref.bib, either on Overleaf or on your offline TechMaker versions, right? And the rest, like we discussed in the preamble, we use package natpib. That's what we'll be using in, or at least that's what I'll be telling you about. And we also mentioned the bibliography style and where are we taking the bibliography from using the bibliography curly bracket ref. So that means that we're taking it again from the ref.bib file. So that tells you about that. Now here you don't have to put ref.bib in this particular line, right? Because it's sort of implied already that it's a bib file that you're taking bibliography from. So all that is enough is just to put the name of the file, ref. That's it, right? But when you're saving it, ref.bib is mandatory, right? So that's about it. And like I said, I'll leave that as an exercise for you to learn about the different bibliography styles in natpib and see what differences there are, right? A. Einstein, Albert Einstein, just Einstein, name of the papers, the journals, and the years, and how much information is displayed in your bibliography section of your document, and so on. Right? I'll leave that up to you as an exercise to explore. Let's now move ahead. Right now, once that is done, everything else is quite simple. Right? So if you want to cite something, you just use cite \cite. That's your code. It's quite simple, right? I'm typing a particular statement and then I say, hey, I want to cite my book. So I'm going to say cite Goldstein, something like that, right? Now, there are specific cases where you don't know what to refer to. I mean, where do you want to cite something? Like, for example, if I'm writing a synopsis of Griffith's electrodynamics book or Goldstein's classical mechanics book, I can't really cite it in every single place, because everywhere it's going to be the same reference, right? Goldstein here, Goldstein there, Goldstein there, Goldstein there, Goldstein there, Goldstein there. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's just going to be a lot of 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 in your document. So that's going to look ugly. So in case you're not sure what to cite and where to cite, then you can use this command called no cite. So you are referring to that book, yes, but you're not citing it anywhere inside your document, right? And the way to do that is again quite simple. Wherever you have your bibliography, ref, and everything, after that you can just put a no cite Goldstein. So that tells me that, hey, I am referring to Goldstein, but I'm not citing it explicitly anywhere in my document, right? Whereas what cite does is it gives you a number on top, like we saw in the very beginning. Let me just go back to the top. Right. So what cite does is it gives you this number. It gives you that square bracket 1. What no, and if you use no cite, then you're not going to have this number at all. Right. So I will show you a quick example on that. Citing in your document. Right. So that's if you are not sure where to cite your particular thing, and you can use a no cite there at the end of your document, and that'll take care of it, right? That's implied that, hey, you're not citing it, but you're still referring to it here and there, everywhere, right? In a lot of places. Okay, now let's take a quick look at an example. Right, so I have some sample text here. Right, now I have the same bib file that I showed you here up here. As in, I have the same at misc, I have the same at article, and I have the same at book. Right, so I'm just going to use these as it is in my example, and I'll show you how it looks like. Right, so this is my LaTeX code. I have a statement here. The velocity of light is given by some mathematical expression, which is also seen in Maxwell's equations. Now, this Maxwell's equation, I'm taking it from the electrodynamics book of Griffiths. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cite Griffiths, ED. Right? And why did I do it like this is because my phrase that I would use to cite my Griffiths electrodynamics book is Griffiths ED. Right? So that's the call thing, right? It calls. So when I use cite Griffiths ED, it comes to Griffiths ED and then prints all of this. So we'll have a look at that. Right? Let me scroll down. Right. So same thing. We'll go on. Since light is an electromagnetic wave, blah blah blah. And then here I want to cite a particular article. Right now, my Fernandez is actually an article. So we just go back up again. Where is this? Right. So when I say Fernandez, that implies that it's an article. Right. So you see, there is really no difference between citing a book and citing an article. But what makes a difference is the amount of information that you give. Right. Now, my book didn't have all these page numbers, volume, journal, so on, but my article does, and my miscellaneous again doesn't. But again, my miscellaneous, my article doesn't contain information about where is it available and so on properly. Right. Here I have a link that I can go to. Here I do not. I have only the DOI, which I can choose or not choose to display, and so on and so forth. So there are those minute differences there, here and there. You can, of course, interchange these, but it wouldn't be fair to whatever you're referring to. It's always good to classify them as articles and books and so on. And again, I also want to refer to that miscellaneous article from the website. So I'm going to say cite crystal beetle, where my crystal beetle is the phrase that I would have used to refer to that miscellaneous thing. Now, let's say I also refer to Goldstein's book here and there. So I'm going to have a no cite Goldstein. Right. Now, the output of this this entire code is going to be this. The velocity of light is this expression, c squared. That's the mathematical expression we had here. And you see my the Griffiths ED book is cited as number 2. Okay. Now, there's a catch to this, which I'm not entirely sure about, which I'll just tell you about it a little later. You might have already understood it, but I will come back to that. Right. So my Griffiths ED is cited as number 2. Now, since I've also used the hyperref package in making this particular presentation, if I can just click on this, right, it leads me to that particular reference, and I see number 2 is David J. Griffiths, Introduction to Electrodynamics, Pearson Publications, 1999. That's the exact information that I had given there. Right. So that's that. And then again, since light is an electromagnetic wave and so on, my next citation was the article of Fernandez. Right? So I'm going to click on 4. That's been cited as 4. And that's the citation, right? So this number 2, the 3, the 4 are the citations. And when I click on them or when I scroll down to my references section, I have those there, right? My 4 was the article by Fernandez, by Christian Campos Fernandez, and I have all the information here. Now, like I said, you would only see the title of the paper, right? Visible light reflection, but you see that it's hyperlinked to another website. The href takes care of that. Right? And we have extra information. Where was it published? The volume and the number of the book, the page numbers, the month and the year of publication, and so on, which is absent in our book here. Right. And then again, similarly, my favorite of them is Crystal Beetle, which is the third reference, which is to the miscellaneous article from the website, right? The conversation. So if I just click on that, we see the third one is the article from there. And again, like I said, it's going to be available at the conversation. That's all is displayed, right? The conversation is linked to that particular article there. And again, that's the effect of using href. Now you see, number 1 is not really mentioned here. That is because Goldstein takes it, right? The no side Goldsteins, even though it's not cited here, is still used as the reference, and that's why number 1 is H. Goldstein, Classical Mechanics 3rd edition, Pearson Education, and the year of publication, 2017, and so on, right? The catch here is, which I'm not entirely sure about, is how exactly this ordering of references takes place, right? Because if you see the text that that I've written here, cites Griffiths first, then Fernandez, then Crystal Beetle, which means it should have been 2, and then this Fernandez should have been up, and then the last one should have been this article, and even further last should have been Goldstein. But then I'm not entirely sure how that thing works. If you guys learn about that, please do let me know on the Telegram channel. And yeah, with that, I think I conclude the whole thing about citations, references, and bibliography. I feel like I rushed through a lot. So I will go back to Zoom and see if there's any questions.
Vikrant, I think we have to use sorting equals none command.
Yeah, probably. I haven't really done that, but I'll just leave that to you to explore, and I'll also try it later on. Whatever works, just let me know so that I can execute it in my next work, whatever it is. Right? Okay, so I am done with the whole today's topic. I see there's a question by Julie. Could it be alphabetical? So again, like Sagar just said, maybe you can just try sorting options and all of that, and let me know if that works. There might be different. Right. So Sagar says use packet sorting equals none. Let me see if that works. Right. I can do it right now. I'll just also show you my text file which I used to build my particular presentation. Right. So I will come all the way down here. Okay. Where did I use NatWeb? It's right here. You say sorting equals none, right? And let's run it. Let's see if that works. Huh. Oh, the PDF is open, so probably I can't. Yeah, nope, it doesn't work that way, Sagar. Probably.
I actually use it in Bibliotech. There it works.
Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe for NatWeb, it's probably something else. So I'll have to look up on that.
Is it because you have given it in that order, like in the reference file?
No, it's not. I verified that, right? So my Griffiths ED comes here at the very top. I don't know if you can see it, right? My Griffiths ED is right here, but my Goldstein is way down here, right? So that's not really a thing. And again, my Crystal Beetle, the miscellaneous is up and the Fernandez thing is down. So that really doesn't work that way. I thought it is that, but it didn't. So this is something that you guys can look up and let me know later. Right? But yeah, again, this is my bib file. I use a lot of books, so you'll see majority of them are books. Don't worry about the text color and stuff. That's just completely random. But this is how my bib file looks like. Right? It's the same. I mean, it's the same for all of them. Enough information that I require is there. The title, the author, the year, and the publisher is more than enough for me. So it's just that, right? It's quite simple. I'll close that. Right. So yeah, I think it still works. Yeah. Okay. So like I said, your tech file. So this particular tech file is named sept-batch.tech, right? That and my ref.bib has to be in the same place. So my ref.bib is right here, and my tech file is right here, right? So they have to be in the same place. That's a mandatory thing if you're working offline. Right? I prefer working offline, so yeah. And if you're using TechMaker, then this is how it would look if you're doing a full-fledged LaTeX document, right? And this is what I did. Uh, no site goals time, the bibliography style, and the bibliography ref as well. Right. So I'll stop sharing. Any other questions that I can answer right now? So like I said, right? I mean, uh, okay, is it the bibliography style tag that is used to select? Yes, I think it is, right? Uh, like I said, right? I mean, I don't really use a lot of bibliography in my stuff. It's a very standard thing. I just refer to books quite a bit, so I just stick to the plain thing. I haven't really explored a lot of the other styles, but I would really appreciate it if you guys did, and I can learn from you then. But for me, so far, plain has been enough. So I've been with that for quite a while now. Although I think I should move on, but yeah, let's see. Okay. Any other questions that I can try to answer? Okay, then. If there's nothing, then Sagar, if you want to add something to bibliography, Sagar's been writing more documents than I do, so he's a better person to tell you how bibliography actually works and stuff.
I think we both can share our both codes, no, to them.
Well, I wouldn't really recommend sharing our entire tech files because then that would probably freak them out.
No, not tech file, rather just the required part for big tech.
We could probably. I'll do one thing. I'll send you my Beamer file right now. Can you convert it into an article and send it to them? Like you just have to get rid of the begin and end frames and then convert it into an article. That's it. There's not really a lot of work.
Okay.
Yeah.